Hey, welcome to Woodworking with Wes. I have a fun little project. I have a whole bunch of lumber left over from different projects that I've been doing, and so I've decided to put it together into a butcher block for the project we have coming up later on this week. It's going to be really fun, so let's get started on our butcher block. I have just spent the last couple of hours milling my stock to thickness and joining one edge and then straight lining it and cutting it to width. I cut it to 1.5 inches, and we're going to glue it together in this pattern with Titebond 2. I put it in my glue bottle. But this is Titebond glue, water resistant glue. My planer is only 12 inches wide, so we're going to glue up 1/2, we're going to glue up the other half, and then after we plane it down to where it is smooth all the way across, because now it's kind of rough, we're going to smooth it down to same distance and glue the two halves together and trim it aside. So let's get this glued up. We've set up our clamps, getting ready to glue this up. I'm just going to show you how we're going to glue this up, and then I'll go ahead and get it all glued up. What we do is I have marked the tops, and I put different angles so I could keep them in the order that I set them up, and I marked across the top so that I could keep the tops up. And what I do is I just lay these boards on its side like this, all the way down. And my front piece I have labeled face. This is going to be the face of my countertop, but I'm going to leave it up like this, ready to go. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just run a good heavy bead of glue down each board. We're not going to be biscuiting this or anything like that. We're just going to be using glue like this because it's a countertop. This is going to be all the glue that we need to make sure that it's all glued together. And like I say, we're using Titebond 2 water resistant glue. This is not going to get wet, but always on a countertop, a wood countertop, a cutting board top, you wash it off with a washcloth or a wet cloth like that to clean it off as you use it. So you want to have a water resistant glue on any kind of cutting board, and we're doing the same with that. So we go down each board like that. Now let me show you how I make sure I spread the glue. And you can spread the glue if you want to, but what I do is I tip the board up and then I just kind of rub it around. And that's how I spread my glue. And it's going to get spread really good when we clamp it together. You'll see as we clamp this up, you'll see the squeeze out on every seam because we've used plenty of glue. Okay, let's rub that in there like that. Now, make sure we get that glue spread around. And I'll go ahead and complete. Now you can already see as with my hands, you can start to see the squeeze out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the remainder of this all glued up, and then I'll show you what the glue up looks like while it's still in the clamps. We now have the top glued up in two sections. I've made a wiggly line across this one board. This is the seam in here that has no glue. So when we come out of clamps, I have two separate pieces to run through the planer, and then I'll glue that seam up after it's all planed. But you can see that we have nice squeeze out in a lot of our joints. We're really glued up real good, and so this is going to be a good glue up. I have 7 clamps on here, giving it good even pressure all the way across so that I've got a really good glue up. This is a big top, but we have good glue up and we have good pressure. This is going to be a great top. Let's come back and see how it is when we get it all out of clamps. We have now allowed our glue to dry for about 2 hours. Let's go ahead and take it out of clamps and make sure that we're okay. Okay, let's back off the pressure on all of our clamps. Okay, we backed off all of the pressure and none of the joints came apart. That's always a good sign. Okay, we've got our glue scraper. This is my homemade glue scraper that I have. And we scrape all the glue off because we don't want to get any glue on our planer when we run it through. The reason we scrape off all the glue is to make sure that we don't get glue all over our planer as we run it through. If there's any wet glue, little globs or anything like that, we don't want to have that. So we scrape both sides, get it all nice and clean to go through the planer. I thought you might like to know what kind of wood we have. Cherry, walnut, hickory, maple, African mahogany, white oak, then maple, cherry, walnut, and hickory again. And that's the 6 woods that we have in here all the way through. We just repeated the pattern several different times, and we've made it actually random. We haven't actually repeated a pattern. We've just kind of put them together random, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, in order to create a nice look. We're going to go ahead and finish scraping up the glue off of our other piece, and then I'll get the planer set up and we'll run this through the planer and see how it looks. With my benchtop planer all set up, the glue all scraped off, we'll watch these marks that I put on, and as those marks disappear, that will tell us that we have gone as far as we want to. What I want to do is I've cut my pieces at 1.5 inches thick. I want to end up with as much thickness as I can, but still have it clean both sides. So we'll turn on the dust collector, put on our hearing protection, get started. We're starting to get it cleaned up. I can still have some unevenness here, and on the back side you can see where we still have quite a bit of unevenness. I'll go ahead and get these all planed out, and then we'll come back and glue these 2 halves together. Now that we have both sides planed to thickness, and I also cut it to length. Now remember, I made this in halves. I had cut my pieces 1.5 inches thick, and I'm now 1 5/16 thick, so I still have a nice thick wood top. We only need to glue this one joint back together, and I'm going to use the same 7 clamps, and I'm going to make sure that we have a nice glue joint down these 2 halves. In fact, I'm going to run a double bead of glue, just like that, like I did before. And we're going to do just like I did before and rub it together. We've got to make sure that our ends are flush because we cut them to size already. We'll start in the middle and clamp our way out. Okay, we're doing good. I want to make sure that we're keeping even as we clamp up, because all we're going to do after I get done with this clamp is sand. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, there we are. Now, how are we there? Okay, just right. That's where we want to be. Okay. Okay. Now let's put our 3 clamps on the top. By clamping top and bottom, we get even pressure on both sides. You can see we're getting a nice squeeze out on our glue seam all the way up and down, which means we have plenty of glue. All right. Okay. And then I want to go down, and I can tell by the tension of each one of these that I have nice even pressure all the way up and down. Okay, I'm going to let that dry overnight. Okay, we have it all clamped up, and this is as far as we're going on this video. I want you to stay tuned and see this project all together and see how this top makes our whole project look great. And I'm going to see you then on Woodworking with Wes.